Recall that connective tissue proper is the like fibrous connective tissue. And so there can be broken down into our dense connective tissue and our loose connective tissue. Okay, our dense connective tissues are dense, regular, dense, irregular, and elastic connective tissue. Our loose connective tissues are adipose tissue, areolar connective tissue, and reticular connective tissue. All right. Our dense regular connective tissue has a primary fiber type that is collagen. So collagen fibers, and the collagen fibers in dense regular connective tissue run parallel to one another like so. So what dense regular connective tissue does is gives us tensile strength on one plane. So pulling on one plane. If we pull or exert force in the opposite direction, that is perpendicular to the collagen fibers, it will easily tear. Hey, so this is things like tendons. Tendons have that tensile strength in one direction, but not many directions. Your dense irregular primary fiber type, again, is collagen. But in this, the fiber types sort of run all, or the collagen fibers run in a variety of different directions, like this. Okay? And so that's what separates your dense regular from your dense irregular, is sort of the direction of the collagen fibers. Now, in our dense irregular connective tissue, notice that because the collagen fibers run in all sorts of direction, it gives us tensile strength in all different directions. Okay, so this is like your dermis, where you can pull on your skin in a variety of different directions and it doesn't get pulled off, right? It's not as strong as our dense regular, so it's weaker than our dense regular, but it gives us strength in all directions, okay? And then our elastic connective tissue, the main fiber type here, is elastin. And elastin, the protein, sort of puts waves in the fibers like this. And so what can happen is during tensile strength, those fibers can sort of stretch out like this, and they can sort of straighten and lengthen, but they have elasticity associated with them, so they recoil. So elastic fibers can stretch and they can recoil. So you've got some elastic fibers like surrounding your blood vessels, you've got some in your skin. Okay, now your dense connective tissues, they're called dense because the fibers are densely packed together. So there's not a whole lot of open space between them. In loose connective tissue, those fibers are sort of widely spaced out. Okay? Now our adipose tissue has a cell type. Main cell type is something called an adipocyte, which stores triglycerides. So this is a energy storage, but can also serve as protection. There is also some collagen fibers associated with the adipose tissue, and there are reticular fibers associated with the adipose tissue. It's not a lot, okay, but it is some. In our areolar connective tissue, the main fiber type is collagen. Okay, now in our areolar connective tissue, the collagen fibers sort of just like look like this. So imagine areolar connective tissue to me, right, is one at which you, like, say you have a whole bunch of straws in your hand and you just drop them on the ground. That would be like the orientation of those collagen fibers. So it's just sort of mishmashed all over the place, right? And then in reticular connective tissue, the reticular fiber is the most common, which makes sense, right? And those reticular fibers are branched like this. And what that does is gives a good, nice sort of pathway for white blood cells. So you're going to see reticular fibers heavy in lymph tissue. Okay, but it has the branched fibers. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at some of this connective tissue proper and see some images of these connective tissue proper. Here we can take a look at the different types of connective tissue proper. So remember, connective tissue proper is divided into our loose connective tissues and our dense connective tissues. In our loose connective tissues, we have our adipose tissue, our reticular tissue, and our areolar connective tissue. So in our adipose tissue, here are cells that have a whole bunch of triglycerides in them. This is going to store that lipid, that fat. So these are the adipocytes. Here's a nice little cartoon showing the adipocytes. And then there's going to be some like collagen fibers out here associated with that extracellular matrix. Down here we have our reticular connective tissue. So reticular connective tissue is branched in nature, right? So these reticular fibers are highly branched, and you can see that here. And then our areolar connective tissue is the collagen fibers here that are really loosely distributed, right, and lots of open space. So the way that I think about these when I'm trying to identify them and I see them underneath of a microscope is my adipose tissue looks like soap bubbles were created. So imagine you got a big pile of dishes and you poured some Dawn in there and then you made all these bubbles, right? Those soap bubbles, that's what adipose tissue looks like to me. Might look like something different to you, but that's what it looks like to me. Down here we have our reticular fibers, and this looks like if you think of like when Venom takes over Spider-Man, if you're a comic person, that's kind of what it looks like to me a little bit. But the other thing it looks like, if you ever watch those wood burning videos where they take two ends of like clamp that are hooked to batteries and they watch the ends of the wood burn together to make this like spider pattern, like lightning bolt patterns out of the wood, that's what this sort of reticular tissue looks like to me. Okay, and then our areolar connective tissue looks like if you were to take a pile of straws and you were to just dump them on the ground with stain, like pour Kool-Aid on the ground, because that's what's going to, the stain of the tissue, right? But these collagen fibers, this here, right, that looks like the sort of straws that you dropped on the ground. Or if you've ever played the game Kerplunk, that's what sort of this looks like a little bit to me if you ever play that game. Okay, now what we can also look at is our dense connective tissues, right? There's our dense regular, our dense irregular, and then we have our elastic connective tissue. Elastic connective tissue isn't shown here, but we can see the difference between our dense regular connective tissue and our dense irregular connective tissue. Okay, so notice in our dense regular connective tissue, these collagen fibers, right, they're all running parallel to one another. They all run in the same direction. Whereas down here, right, those collagen fibers are ran in all sorts of directions. So let's go ahead and we'll move me over here a little bit, and you can see here these collagen fibers here, right? They're all running in all sorts of different directions. And so that's your dense irregular. And elastic, I don't have a picture of that one shown here, but it does have those wavy fibers, and we'll take a look at those in some other videos. So those are the connective tissue propers. So follow along and we'll learn some more and we'll see more about these tissues.